Hello guys, hope you all are doing good. So today I'll be talking about Python, and this is our first day. So our today's agenda is quite straight, that we will learn some basic introduction about Python. So before starting with Python, a quick introduction of myself. Uh, Guys, this is Neeraj, and currently I am working in IBM India. I am basically from Nainital. I am I have done my graduation from Kumar University and I have done my masters from Birla Institute. Guys, this is a quick introduction about me. Let's start our Python journey now. So, in this series, we will start from very scratch and we will cover almost every topic, which are every possible topics. Okay, and I will try to cover everything. I will try to share a good knowledge transfer to you. So before starting with Python, let first understand what programming is, and why we are going for programming, and why we are choosing Python. All the questions we will cover today. So guys, if before understanding programming, let us take a simple example. For example, if I want to talk with my brother, there is a intermediate thing which is needed to talk with someone. That intermediate thing is the language. Because of a particular language I am able to speak, and the next person is able to understand that. Without language we cannot do that. This is not possible. If I am using English language and my brother is not aware about English and he don't know about English, then he will never know I want to say and what I actually want to share with him. Similarly, in computer world, programming language is just a way by which we just convey our message to our machine. Our machine only understands 0 and 1. Here the 0 and 1 doesn't mean we are talking about any numeric numbers. I'm I'm coming on to that point, but first, the programming is just a way by which we are just expressing, or we can say just you know just is just a way, just a mediator which convey our message, right? We know that computer is able to perform some complex and some easy tasks. So to perform those tasks we have to write some commands. When those command executes, our computer performs some task according to those commands. And those commands we written in any programming language. Means what programming language is, it is just a way. Okay, so what actually happened behind the story? Our computer has and many transistors, or you can say many you know transistors. It only understand the on and off. According to the on and off combination, our computer understand what the meaning of that command, or what computer should do. So to represent that on and off, there is a binary representation called 0 and 1 representation. So whenever we say that 0 1 0 1, that is a representation of that on and off. So computer can only understand that on and off. Okay, so a computer have transistors according to the which type of computer we are having. So for in large computer, the number of transistors may be high, and in so according to those transistors, according to the on and off, our computer is able to understand, right? So this is the process that how our computer actually work, right? So what happens when we write anything using any programming language? In every programming language there is a piece of code, and there is something called interpreter or compiler. What that piece of code does, that actually convert our code into machine language, into actually an assembly language. And in our computer there is an assembler which convert that assembly language into machine language, and that machine language our computer can understand that machine language. So there are two or three some terms are here. That one first thing, there is something called compiler or interpreter. That is again just a piece of code, someone from the developer community has written that, right? And that code is helpful to convert our code which we are writing. That code is converted by that interpreter and that compiler. That code compiled or interpreted and converted into another language called assembly language, and that assembly language further converted into machine language by our computer's assembler. That machine language is, and our computer can understand that machine language. This is, I think this is very, I think this is quite easy. So now come to our Python journey, right? So now we are means ready to go, and we know what is programming language and how the things works actually. So Python is a programming language, and we know the meaning of programming language now. So Python is the programming language. Python is a programming language, means by which we can just express our thoughts, express our feelings. You can say it's simple in simple words, right? It has efficient high level data structure, and these theory you can see on my screen, these all are theory, but the simple is Python is a programming language, and now we are ready. We know that what we can do with Python. We can, if we want to perform some task from our computer, then there is something by which we can do that. That is programming language, and Python is that language. There are n numbers of languages available in market, but Python is one of them. Why Python is becoming so popular, we will talk about it later. With time or with slides, you will see why Python is so popular and why this is the most demanding language in the market, right? So Python was created by Gaudio von Rossum in 1990, and Python comes under the GNU, or you can say General Public License, right? Python is derived from many languages like ABC, Modula 3, C, C++, and other languages. Python is a high level language. Guys, there are two terms in programming world: high level language and low level language. Low level language means a language which is closer to that binary representation which we have talked already. We have discussed already that what that binary representation is. So the level languages are more closer to that, right? And high level languages are less closer to that, right? Okay, so that's why this is the only reason most of the libraries, if you will talk about Android, or if you will talk about most of the Python libraries or many things, are written in those low level languages, because those are more closer to those binary representation, right? Python is an interpreted language. We have already discussed about interpreter and compiler. Every language have some piece of code, or you can say something which convert our code into assembly language. And what happens after that? Assembly language further converted into machine language by our assembler. So Python has that interpreter which convert our code which we are writing into assembly language. Now, what actually interpreter work? An interpreter, you know, whatever we are writing in our Python file, interpreter runs every line, runs that code line by line. First, it will read the first line, then second, then third. According to that, it works, right? And compiler, first it will check whole code, then it run that code, right? So Python is an interpreted language, means there in Python, interpreter is the thing which convert our code into assembly language. Now, there are some characteristics of Python. Python is by the by with Python we can do functional, structural programming, and also we can as well as object oriented programming. We will all these terms are new for you if you are a new person in programming world. So, but we will talk about it later with time. When we will talk about function, then we will talk about functional programming, and later on when we will talk about object oriented programming and structured programming, then we will talk about that. For it, this is just an introduction part, so we will not see any practical video in this part. In next part I will see the practical video, right? Now, Python can be used as a scripting language or can be compiled to bytecode for building large application. By with the help of Python, we can create a simple project, a large project. We can create a script. We can create a desktop application. Everything we can create with the help of Python. Okay. It provides very high level dynamic data type and support dynamic type checking. I'll talk about it later when we will come into the when we'll talk about data types, right? Because if you are new, then definitely you will not aware about data types. So when we will talk about data type, then definitely I will cover it. It supports automatic garbage collection. Guys, this is a very important feature of any programming language. What happens actually when we write any code? So there are many unused, or I'll not talk about any variable now. So many unused thing you can say which are not useful for our program, right? But they are those unused variable or those unused things are taking some memory in our memory area. That is not good because it can consume our speed. It can affect on our speed and efficiency, and too much problem it can occur. So Python has an inbuilt feature, and that feature can automatically, remove that garbage from our program. So Python has the inbuilt garbage collection feature. It can be easily integrated with C, C++, COM, other languages. So this is another characteristic of Python. Python has some very interesting features. Like Python is very easy to learn. Since Python syntaxes are very similar like English and English words, so it's very easy to learn, easy to read, easy to maintain. A broad standard library, I'll talk about it later, why this is very important and why we are counting this point in its feature, right? Portable, extensible, it has database features, GUI programming, you can do anything with Python. Dynamic memory allocation, one of the very important feature of Python. I'm just coming into that point after one or two slides. We can do n numbers of things with Python. We can build desktop application, web applications, large application or small application, software development, uh, image processing, and many more stuff we can do with Python. So this is type of motivation for you that if you are learning Python, if you are coming to in this world, so yes, you can do all the stuff with Python. So if you are learning Python, you are in the right platform and you are in the right. Now we have a clear idea in our mind about programming, about how the things actually work, how the computer actually work, how the data store in them, how when we write code, what happens actually, what happens with them. So everything we have already discussed, and I think we are aware about that now. Okay, so now let's talk about some stuff in programming world. Let's move ahead for the next step. So variables. So when we work with any programming language, we have to store some values, right? For example, I want to add two numbers, so first I have to store those numbers into the memory location. So to store those variables, we have to store that variable into memory location. We can store those variable into our memory location, but variable is the name of that memory location which is storing our value is storing into our memory location, but the variable is just referring the memory location, that it's a name of that memory location, nothing more than that. Okay. And when we work with any programming language, we have to follow some rules and regulations of that programming language. Yes, actually, what happens when we work with any programming language, we have to follow some rules and regulations. What happens, our computer don't know about English character or any character, any numbers, any numeric, and we computer don't know about that. There are some developers who has developed something for us which allow us to write something, and something which something, and that those developer also created something which convert our code which we have written into the machine understandable code. So with that they have created certain rules, some rules to write code, right? So we have to follow those rules in any program. If you are working with Java, if you are working with Python, any programming language, there are certain rules of that programming language. Similarly, in Python there are some rules and regulations which we have to follow, right? Then only our program will work fine, right? So let's talk about variable now. So variable is just a name of that memory location where my value is storing. I can store anything. I can store my name. I can store any number. I can store anything. A complex number, an integer, a real number, my name, my father's name, my grandfather's name. Anything I can store. Wherever it will store, the name of that memory location is called variable. As simple as that. So variable is just a name of that memory location, right? There are some other stuff like data type and all in this slide, but I'll talk about everything in today's session, right? So as we have discussed that there are some rules and regulation with every programming language. Similarly, in Python there are some rules. If you are creating any variable or making any variable, you have to follow some rule. The name of that variable, you know, the name with that variable naming, there are some certain rules which you can see on my screen, that all the characters except the first letter may be in alphabet or lowercase, uppercase, underscore or digit. We cannot use any special character in our variable name, otherwise our Python program will throw an error. Here error is a new term maybe for you, but I will also cover it later when we will see any error on our console, right? Console is a thing where we can see our output. In Python we can also call identifiers to variables. We can also call identifier to variables, right? So when we write any variable, when we store some value into memory location, when variable just name of that memory location. So when we write some value, every value has some type. For example, if I'm typing my name Neeraj, so it's a string. String means a sequence of characters. If I'm writing a, it's a character. If I'm writing 10, it's an integer. If I'm writing 10.2, it's a float. No, there are certain data types. There are subtypes of data is called data type, right? So when we store something into a variable, then data is of any type, right? That can be a number, that can be a string, that can be a float, that can be something else. So every value has a type, and that type is called data type. The definition and these terms are same for any other languages, right? So in Python, in other languages, we have to declare the data type with that data which we are storing. For example, if I'm storing string, so we have to first declare to the language that yes, I'm storing string. But in Python, we don't have to, um, you know, tell Python that I'm storing string. Python is smart enough and can understand what type of data is user storing into the system, right? So there are some functions. Functions means function is again, function is a new term for new peoples, but who are already working in programming world, they are aware about functions. But for new, let me a simple definition. A function chapter will I will cover function chapter later, but for now, function is just a piece of code. For example, if you want to add something, you will write some code. But in a program, let's say you want to add two numbers five times you need the same code. So instead of writing that code again and again, you will create a function where you will write that code, and whenever you want to add some number, you will just call that function, that please, that function will work for you. So instead of writing a code five times, you will just write a code a single time, and you will call that code again and again, and that code will work fine for every time, right? So these are function, a simple definition of function. When we will work with function, then we will also cover it. So here are some inbuilt function and some predefined function, or you can say also user defined function. Predefined function means the function which are already created by Python developers or Python community and provided us for better experience. And user defined function means the function which we are creating. Okay, so in Python there are n numbers of predefined or inbuilt function which we can use. So here we have talked about variable. So some function we can use with variables. For example, I am storing any value into the variable, so I can check that type of that variable using type function. And whenever we assign any value to a variable, it all there is Python always give it a identity that has to be unique and constant for the object during the lifetime. Because of that identity, Python always verify that this is the right value for that variable, right? So as you can see, with the id function you can check the identity of that variable. Let me show you. For example, I'm taking example a. Here a is the variable, and I'm storing 12 into a. 12 into a means I'm storing 12 into memory location, and a is the name of that memory location. Now if I want to check the type of a, I will write type a. It will show the type of that variable. But how it will show? There is a function called print, which is which is used to print something on the console. Here is the console. This is the console where you will see the output. This is the in this I will show everything about this later, but for now just just need to understand that there is a variable called a. 12 is the value for that variable, and print is again a function. And this is a function which is written by Python developers. There is some code, okay, there is some piece of code, and that we Python developer just named that code print. Okay, when we write print, it will use for print something on the console. Okay, because what function is actually a piece of code, right? So instead of writing that piece of code again and again, we create some function and we give some name. So print is a predefined function which have already defined by Python developers. We are just using it. We are just writing print. It will print something on the screen. Type a means type is again an inbuilt function which will show us the type of the variable. Here a is the variable name which we have declared here. So now if we will run here, see, class int, it means it automatically understand that what is the type of a. This is the power of Python. Now if I want to check the identity which we have discussed earlier, so if I'll write print id of a, it will show the id which is assigned to this variable, that this id assigned to this variable, right? This is about variable and some basic functions, right? So as we have discussed earlier, that data types means the type of the data, which type of data we are actually storing. But in Python, fortunately, we don't need to specify the data type of any value. Python automatically, and Python is smart enough, it automatically understand which type of data a user is storing, right? So but for understanding, we are just referring this slide, right? Now there are some standard data types, means the data which we are storing, we can store a integer type of data, a complex number. Yes, in most of means in Java, in other programming languages, there is, I don't know about this complex number comes concept, but in Python we can also store complex number. We can store float. Float means point like 10.2, 3.2, like that. Dictionary, set, tuple, and list. These are some other stuff in Python. We will talk about it later because these are very very this will take a separate session because this is not very easy terms and very useful terms in Python. So I'm not covering these stuff now, right? Boolean. Boolean is again a data type. Boolean means true or false. For example, true or false value. Set is, I'll talk about it later. On string. String means a combination of characters. For example, A, B, C. This is a string. A is a character, right? So string character collection of characters. So there are some predefined words or predefined words which has some special meaning in Python. Interpreters know about these. If I'll write these words, interpreter will automatically know what the meaning of these words. Those words are called keywords. The words which have some unique, you know, meaning, right? Special meaning, right? Interpreters, if so, these are some keywords in Python. If right, in every programming language there are some keywords available. The meaning, the definition of keywords is same for every programming language. The keywords may different, but the meaning of keyword will be same for every programming language. So these are the words which are some special meaning, which have some special meaning and interpreter can understand it, right? Now, Python literals. Literal means whatever we are storing into a variable, it's called literal. For example, I am storing my name, this is a literal. I am storing my phone number, it's a literal, right? For example, Krishna 12345, these are literals, right? Anything which we are storing under any quotation, it will, Python will treat as a string. For example, Krishna is a string, 12345 is a number, but since we are, you know, enclosing it with single quotation, so it will also treat it as string. So anything which will be enclosed with single or double quotation, it will treat it as string in Python. So there are, two types of strings in Python: single line string and multi-line string. Single line string means where one line string if you want to store, so that is called single line string. But there is a multiple line string, for example a paragraph or like that, that is called a multi-line string. So a single line string you can easily define by using single quote or double quotes, but to but for multi-line string you have two ways. You can use triple quotation or you can use slash for that, right? This is the type of string. We can store string in two ways. First way, single quotation mark; in second way, triple quotation mark or a slash, right? These are quite simple topics. Numeric literals. Numeric literals are immutable. Numeric literals means we cannot change it once after now assigning, we cannot change it, right? There are four types of numeric literals in Python: int, signed integer, long, float, and complex. Long means very big values like crores and like that, and float means real numbers like 20.2, 30.4, like that. Complex means which whatever we can write in the form of a plus ib. These are, we can also store complex number in Python, right? Let me show you something. For example, I want to store a complex number, so I will write 1 plus i9. Sorry, actually I was using I here. This is not I, this is J. So now I can also write complex number here. I have written AB equals to 0 plus 0j. This is a complex number representation, and if you'll write print AB, it will print that complex number. If you want to check the type, if you can write type of that. If you want to check that ID, you can also write this. As you can see, this is a complex type. It had automatically understand, and the ID of that variable and the value, right? If you will change it with this, it will show you accordingly that 3 plus 3 is a real part and 1j is an imaginary part in this, right? So this is about numeric literal. And similarly, you can use string, like if I use str equals to, you can use in single quotation ABC, or you can use in str1, str2 are the variable names, as we have discussed in previous slides, that what are the variable and what are the variable names. So str and str2 here is the variable names. I can write ABC 1 2 3. These we can represent our string in single quotation and double quotation. If there is a multi-line string, then we can write in this way, then in triple quotation. Now if you print this, you will get the output, right? So these are the string representation. Now boolean literals. Boolean means where we talk about true and false. It comes under boolean literals. Special literal. There is special literal also available in Python called a none. None is used to specify that the field that is not created. Also used for end of the list in Python. We will talk about it later when we will talk about list. Okay. And literal collection means a list, set, dictionary. We will talk about this section later when we will talk about set, dictionary. Python comments. If you are already aware about comments, if you already, then it's okay. But the person who is new, for his comments is comments are means for example, if I want to write something in my program, and I want that this particular line or these particular lines should not be read by interpreter or compiler. In that case, I can I can use those lines as a comment. Comments means the line which are not treated as a executable command by the compiler or interpreter. So in Python there are two ways to write comments. First, we can use hash. Second, we can use multi-line string. Let me show you how. So if I want to comment something, I will write hash something. Now if I'll run it, you can see that this line is not giving any error because this line is not executed by our interpreter. But if I'll just remove this hash from here, now it will throw an error. See, because now interpreter don't know about this line, what is the meaning of this, right? Because we are not following any rule here. So first way of comment is hash, and second way is multi-line string. Now the question is, we have already discussed about the multi-line string. So how it will work as a comment? As simple, if you are assigning a multi-lining string to a variable, then it will be a multi-lining string. Otherwise, if I will not assign it to any variable, it will be a comment for Python. Interesting, right? So if you are assigning a multi-line string to a variable, then it would be a multi-line string for Python. Otherwise, it will be treated as a comment in Python. I think this is quite easy and everybody is. No. So That's now all about today. So in next chapters we will talk about some practical videos. We have discussed about these stuff, what data types is, what keywords, literals, variables, and other stuff. In later on, with time, we will see other stuff. And from next time, we will do some practical on Python and how we can work with Python, how we can work with programming. Today we have learned how programming actually work and how our code actually compiled or interpreted by the software. What actually happens behind the scene. We have discussed only about that. But in next chapters, we will talk about some interesting facts in Python. Thank you guys. Thank you very much for today.